Hello, and welcome to yet another completely unprofessional interview. Scott here, and welcome to the only RPG show that is guaranteed to provide you 100% organic farm to table interviews. And I have, again, another special guest with me here today to have a little chat with. It is someone that I've been wanting to get on for some time now, and so I appreciate him coming on. But who we have today is the author of such RPGs as Hubris, a wonderful adventure for Dungeon Crawl Classics called Orcs, and also a wonderful game that I enjoy thoroughly and have spent quite a lot of time with, Barbarians of the Ruined Earth. Welcome, Mike Evans. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's the pleasure is all mine. So
It will be by the end of the night.
So I mean, and that's why, because we haven't really, we haven't chatted personally. We've done what most people do. We've exchanged the usual chit chats back and forth on social media. Share the occasional joke, the occasional jab, and whatnot that people tend to do. But one of the things that I've always enjoyed is the certain amount of aesthetic that you yourself personally have, and just extrudes from you through your social media aspect and through your games, which can be quoted as, if I'm not mistaken, powered by the middle finger. Which is an aesthetic that it may not be for everyone, but it's one that I appreciate. So it is, and again, to quote, it is a glory to behold. So no, I have your website here.
Oh, yeah.
Again, that's something that most people who haven't seen before will learn rather quickly. I'm as prepared as right before we hit record.
Yeah.
So,
nice.
but anyways, so Mike, again, thank you for coming on. And so, before we get into who you are and and the games that you've done and a little bit about your history within the industry itself, what I like to do on this channel is the typical trope that everybody and their grandfather has done on most of these things is indulge me and the people watching. What was your introduction into role-playing games or video games? What was it that that was first introduced you to this wonderful hobby that eventually led you into being a creator within it?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing was video games.
Mhm.
I didn't get to cut my teeth with actual tabletop gaming until I was, I think, 16,
Oh,
or almost 16.
okay.
So before that, it was what I guess a lot kind of typical Final Fantasy 4,
Hmm.
Final Fantasy 7, Chrono
Okay.
Trigger,
Hmm.
and I think Chrono Trigger was probably the one of the biggest impacts for me as
Hmm.
someone who likes RPGs,
Hmm.
because it had, even though it was still railroaded like a traditional JRPG is, there was still
Right.
more things to do. Unlimited, set 16 endings, characters. Just it was a wonderful game. So I had never really done it, and I was living in California at the time. I had
Hmm.
lived in Laguna Hills from ages 8 to almost 16, and then I moved to a small town called Whitefish, Montana.
Okay.
And I lived there. I had been there a summer. We moved in
Hmm.
April, so the summer goes through. The next year, I started 10th grade, and this friend of mine says, "Hey, I see you like all these games, and you seem to be a big dork. How about you come, play some role playing games with us?" And I said, "Sure. What is that?" And so he kind of takes me through the process of what it is really quickly. Show up at this friend's house, and this other guy's running a game, and he goes, and before the game, let me backtrack. Before the game,
Hmm.
I get handed from the GM a player's handbook
Hmm.
and 100 questionnaire to create my character.
Right.
And then just was told, go figure it the fuck out. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I had to go read the handbook myself, having no clue what any of this means, but kind of figuring it out. And then I have to write this 100 question thing, right? So I created a dwarf, and and they basically told me what I was playing, because
Right.
it was the thing the party didn't have. They didn't have a thief and they didn't have a fighter. I could choose either. I chose both. So I was a it was second edition, so it's dual
Mhm.
class, rogue, fighter, dwarf.
Right.
I would never be good at anything in my entire life. You know, like the way those work. So I rolled this character, thought it was fun. I had fun going through the questions because it was kind of like a creation process, which I hadn't
Mhm.
really done before.
Right.
Get into the game. They start going over the rules with me a little bit. We start playing. First room, they're like, "Oh, yeah, door's locked." Okay, I roll. Okay, you check any trap? Do you check for traps? You got to tell us if you do that. Okay, yeah, I check for traps. So this is a GM who rolled everything behind the screen. You
Right.
didn't do any of your own rolls really for the
Mhm.
most part.
Yep.
And so he rolled and he's like, "Yeah, you have no there's no traps." Okay. I go to unlock the door. He's like, "Oh, you feel a sharp prick in your finger. Roll save versus death." Okay. You failed. And he just tears up my character sheet very
Oh, wow.
dramatically. And I was like, "Oh, this is fun. This is I'm having a blast." And so so he's like, "All right, make a new character." And here's the 100 question character development thing. I said, "Well, since this guy just died, can't I just use these questions and make it in new characters?" Like, "Nope, that character is dead." And I said, "I'm done." And I got up and I walked out and I went home. And so a couple days later, my buddy, who was the one who invited me to this game, came and he says, "Yeah, I'm sorry, that guy is he's a dick to new people. I should have thought of that. How about I run you a game?"
Yeah.
And so he ran me a game for my friend and I. No character creation. He just ran it off the fly, and I had a
Mhm.
blast.
Yeah.
And that's what got me hooked. And then I played in a Shadowrun game
Oh, wow.
for
Okay.
a second edition into third edition, and then they used some Cyberpunk 2020 rules.
Mhm.
Um, and I played in that for about a year. And in that time, I dipped my toe into D&D here and there. But then, as
Mhm.
I started, within 6 months, I started running games myself,
Right.
and was running both Shadowrun and Dungeons and Dragons.
Mhm.
And then since then, I've been playing. So
Yeah. I mean, that's an odd transition. I shouldn't say odd, but usually there's a bit more of a baby steps between moving from someone's typical introduction, which is Dungeons and Dragons, and then to something like Shadowrun. Because infamously, I can pronounce that correctly, I'm sure, is Shadowrun has always been the game that a wonderful setting, but the rules are always a bit slippery and
oh, they're
slidey, and
terrible.
yeah, and so it's one of those things when you hear someone make a transition from what's typically Dungeons and Dragons to some obscure game. It's like, how are you still gaming?
Yeah.
But no, it sounds like that you've done what a lot of people did was make it your own.
Yep.
A little of the do it yourself aesthetic, so to speak. But so that's fantastic. So you've essentially you've started with second edition,
Hmm.
and then went into Shadowrun.
Hmm.
And so did you ever venture back to any of the older games during this time, or were you strictly just kind of within second edition and forward and Shadowrun and there and
Yeah,
there
so
and on?
so Shadowrun, I ran games for about a year, played in that other game for a year, ran
Mhm.
D&D off and on until I graduated. Well, until my junior year, it really picked up, and then I
Mhm.
pretty much was doing just Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
Um, just like I'm a casual gamer in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. I game maybe once a month if I'm lucky.
Hmm.
I'm busy.
Right.
And then all my friends, historically through pretty much my entire life, are gamers because I got them into the cult, kind of thing.
Right.
And so they game and they enjoy it and they love it when I run a game, but they ain't running to the game store to get the new product.
Right.
So by and large, it's when I can get those groups of people to congregate together.
Hmm.
So when you're in high school and you don't have someone who's really into gaming, Shadowrun is a really hard game to get
Yeah.
buy into. You
Yeah.
know, it really is.
Hmm.
I remember like one person had like roll 20 dice for their body, and I saw blood come out of their nose. Like it's just like it's just not a good thing. So D&D was always just that, always been that approachable game.
Right.
So I continued on with that after I dropped out of high school and moved to go to
Mhm.
college,
Mhm.
and was working. So I was running a lot of D&D at that point. I think that was like the highlight of my D&D play running time. Like we would have
Mhm.
weekly games, sometimes twice a week. And then we switched to third edition after much
Mhm.
bemoaning and me young man grognarding back then. Oh, second edition is better. Brr. And so then I realized that I would never have to explain Thaco again, and I made
Ah.
the change because that was always I can handle second edition rules. They never bothered me, but
Mhm.
every time I would play with these people, what does Thaco mean again? I'm like, oh god,
Yeah.
we've been playing for a year, you know.
Yeah.
So
Oh, no. I understand, yeah.
yeah, so I played that, and then I tried fourth. I let like a couple people run games, just wasn't for me. Was not
Mhm.
interested. So I went to Pathfinder. And that's when I was running games. I'd moved to New Jersey with my girlfriend, now wife. Ran a lot of Eberron.
Okay.
And then I started getting bored with D&D and
Right.
stuff. But there was, this is after the real big explosion of all those third party products that were all like black and white and the shittiest paper, and you found them in the game store, and they were just like the weirdest pictures. You're like, oh, that's a 3-year-old child's drawing a dragonkin or something, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a great book.
Mhm.
And so I was just, there was nothing that was weird out there. Was nothing that like I wanted
Mhm.
in my games. So I started writing my own settings. I would use pilfer things from like Eberron or whatever.
Mhm.
But by and large, that's kind of when I started. I'm just going to continue to write my own campaigns and make it weird
Right.
and gross and whatever. Well,
Yeah. So you're out finishing college at this time or about ready to wrap it up
yeah. So
or
I got my GED when I was 18. I dropped out of high school.
yeah.
I worked for about 2 years. Went to
Mhm.
college.
Mhm.
Too damned expensive. Dropped
Yeah.
out of college. We
Mhm.
moved in 2005, and then I
Okay.
didn't go to school for a couple of years.
Mhm.
I just worked,
Right.
and then I went to school at nights while working at a hospice full time, and then I was. That's where I started writing Hubris. Was when I was at the hospice. Totally unrelated.
So that makes me curious then, because if it I don't believe DCC wasn't out at that time, was it?
No.
So Hubris was essentially just a setting that you were creating, and it either it
Yep.
was cobbled together with rules that you were borrowing from, but it didn't
Yep.
have like a set rule set for it yet.
if you
Interesting.
if
Okay.
if you go onto my website and you type up like
Mhm.
Frankenhack or something like that,
Yeah.
there's this OSR style rule set that I was creating
Hmm.
that was originally going to be the backbone of Hubris, and I had started writing some of the fluff, but
Right.
um, I was kind of hesitant to write the fluff because I've seen a lot of books, and I'm not trying to make a jab at anybody, but
Hmm.
either setting free or mechanics free books, or
Yeah.
it was created for one system and then they rewrote it for another. You can tell.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah.
and I wanted the mechanics to make sense within the description of the world. Even if the rules are light, I wanted the GM to be able to have, okay, this is how the rules work and the reality works in this game.
Right. Hmm.
Um, so I think I was getting distracted and not wanting to finish the rules. And why am I writing another rule set when there's all these rules out there? And someone said, you should look at Dungeon Crawl Classics. This probably would be perfect for it. And I had a real chip on my shoulder about DCC originally,
Hmm.
because, and I'll still be honest, too many damn
Yeah.
pages. The
Right.
book is heavy, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of rolling. The rolling is fun, and I understand that is part of the design.
Yep.
But I was very apprehensive about using it. So one day I snorted 18 lines of cocaine and read the book in 5 minutes. It's possible, but
Oh
I
yeah.
fell in love with it. I think it's a great system. I honestly don't play it as much because I play my own stuff or I'm play
Hmm.
testing stuff.
Right.
But I thought it was a perfect fit for Hubris. And so I completely stopped what I was doing and rewrote from scratch all of the classes to mirror those mechanics, so it would exist cohesively within the structure.
Oh, interesting. So I got a question. So during this time, were you kind of still operating in a bubble? Were you communicating with other people, like during the G plus era and all this
Yep.
stuff? Or okay, so
That's
you
so
were.
so it long story short is I had
Mhm.
burnt out, like I said,
Yeah.
and was kind of taking a step back. I was playing Pathfinder. I had house ruled Pathfinder into an oblivion where it's like I'm not even really playing Pathfinder anymore. Why am I
Right.
playing this game?
Mm-hmm.
And around that time, before G Plus, there was this thing called RPG bloggers,
Hmm.
and it was just this large RSS feed of people posting their stuff, and it was the most amazing thing. I still haven't found something aside from G Plus that has been as good as and as handy as that thing is. And I know
Right.
it's gone now, but it was just such a great way to, oh yeah, this person has a new blog post. It's like the news. You got your feed every day versus now where it seems like it's metastasized into the ether and I have no fucking clue how to find these things, you know. But
Yeah.
I it was back then, you would comment on everyone's blog posts because there was nowhere else to comment. So there'd be
Hmm.
these conversations and there'd be people talking about different rule sets. Well, that's when OSR started.
Yeah.
And Jeff Rant's blog post in what 2006, I think, was his
Hmm.
famous date where he's like, "I'm done with D&D and back to the old school," and rallying that charge.
Yeah.
And that's when I got caught up in that. And that's when I
Okay.
discovered, and I know invoking the name's terrible, but Zach Smith and
Hmm.
Vornheim, and
Hmm.
and I'll just say it. I've been very honest about this.
Yep.
Regardless of whatever, Vornheim is still an amazing RPG book, and it changed how I look at RPG books.
Hmm.
And that was like, I saw that book and I was like, I want to do this. This is my kind of jam. Short, to the
Yeah.
point, evocative. And so that's when I started getting into doing the I don't know if you remember, like, the Hexenbracken, where on G Plus everybody would take a number and they would build a 1,000 hex crawl, and all these people would fill out random numbers.
Hexes.
Yeah,
Random numbers. Yeah.
hexabracket.
Hmm.
So it was all these like fun, cooperative, amazing shared experiences, creating something that was just awesome and weird. And that's what got me into it. And then G
Yeah.
Plus started happening during that time as well.
Hmm. Interesting. So okay, so the year then is probably what now? As you're working
Two,
on. Go ahead.
2008 to 2013, roughly in
Okay.
that time period.
Okay. So you're working on Hubris for how long? About how
I,
long
it
did?
it took me, so I started at the hospice in 2008. I really started working on Hubris probably about 2011. I was doing
Okay.
other things, like, again, if you look, I started my blog in, I think, 11 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing it for 13 years now, or 10
Yep.
years, 11, I don't know. And I was doing a whole bunch of other things. And then
Mm-hmm.
Hubris started forming around that point, around 2011. And it took me 4 years and change to write that book. Oh,
Wow. And so hubris and again, correct me if I'm wrong. Hubris, then eventually you get to the point where like, okay, it's done,
yeah.
right? And you've been doing some blog work. It's safe to assume, just like everyone around that time period is either has some impact on someone else's work. They're working together, credited or not. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of this information around that time is being openly shared and influenced
Yep.
between others.
Yep.
And so hubris. So eventually you're like, okay, I'm done. This is, I've been working on this for 4 years. And so you come out with a Kickstarter for
Yep.
hubris. Okay. So how did that go? Because I wasn't part of the Kickstarter. I discovered hubris after the fact, but it's one of those things where I'm a bit curious on, since I wasn't there to witness it.
Yep.
How did your Kickstarter go for hubris?
I expected it to crash and burn because I was no one heard of me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Gonzo book.
Yep.
There was only at that time very few Gonzo books like it at that point.
Hmm.
And I also I don't try to poke a finger or whatever in a beehive and try to be crass or shocking for just the value of doing it.
Yeah.
But if
Hmm.
I'm going to make a Tetsuo Iron Man nail driver penis joke, I'm going to make it, and it's going
Yeah.
to be an Easter egg that I hope someone gets.
Yeah.
So like like with Hubris, it was listening to a lot of thrash metal,
Hmm.
watching a lot of those old horror movies that like I personally enjoy. Um, a lot of Nine Inch Nails and old Marilyn Manson music videos, like
Hmm.
specifically Tourniquet and The Beautiful People and The Man That You Fear.
Yes.
Those three videos specifically,
Hmm.
and a bunch of other things, and then just throwing it into a pot and getting it
Yeah.
going. So I didn't expect it to do too well, but the DCC community, like Harley Stroh and Brendan LaSalle, Wayne Snyder, Timothy Deshay, they were all on board with this book.
Hmm.
And the foreword, if you read it, like Harley even said, I didn't think Joseph was going to approve this book. Because he had already turned away people who were kind of trying to go the Lamentations of the Flame Princess route with
Right.
DCC. And he's like, yeah, no, and Harley's like, he is not going to approve this book. He's going to make you edit it. Joseph was just like, yeah, no, go for it. And I'm like, okay. And so I launched the Kickstarter. We got $7,000.
Hmm.
It went really well. It took a little bit longer to get the book out than anticipated,
Hmm.
just because of the sheer size of it. Um, and then there was some technology issues during the layout process, but we got them fixed. Alex Mayo did a phenomenal job. Um, I think people don't realize that layout artists, it's a thankless job,
Oh.
by and large, and it is
Hmm.
hard work. So he did it, and I appreciate him.
Yeah. No, layout artists and editors. Those are the two people behind the scenes that very rarely you'll hear about it. And we have a joke between me and my friends that when the Ennies come out, we have a side award ceremony that no one goes to called the Eddies. It's the Editor Awards.
Oh,
And no one wins it because even the editors don't even bother showing up.
yeah. Well,
So
editors don't have feelings. That is a fact.
no,
I read it on a QAnon website.
100%.
Yep.
You can't have a soul and be a good editor.
Yep.
Uh, so so Hubris comes out, right?
Hmm.
And again, I just want to back up a little bit and just for those who aren't aware, because I know this is going to be going up on a lot of different sites. Of course, it's going to post on the DCC fan site on Facebook, whatnot. So a lot of people are going to be familiar with you and familiar with the core DCC group. But for those who aren't aware of Dungeon Crawl Classics and the people that run and support this game, they are probably one of the most supportive,
Yep.
fantastic people
Yep.
that I have ever witnessed
Hands down.
throughout the entire hobby.
Hands
Throughout the
down.
entire hobby. Yeah, you can't ask for a better group of people if you're an emerging author, or creator or whatever you may be, and you're looking to get, you have an idea, but you're not sure where to take it to. Definitely consider Dungeon Crawl Classics
Absolutely.
because they are going to guide you with infinite amount of wonderful advice and will do their best to get your game out there.
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
really is a fantastic community.
So Hubris comes out, right?
Hmm.
And it's one of the things that so a little bit about my history is I discovered Dungeon Crawl Classics probably a little late because like many people, I had a bit of a downtime with gaming primarily because of personal life. I
Yep.
got married, had work, had kids.
Those were your
Ain't
first mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. Ain't got time for any of this shit anymore. Um, but still kind of, I would still buy books. I'd still read books. I'd still talk with my friends about it, but nothing was really happening. And of course, a lot of that itch is slated by video games.
Yeah.
No, you're still here.
Yep. My
Uh,
battery
so,
fell out.
oh, no worries. No worries. No, we don't edit here. It's fine.
Yeah.
So anyways, so my son was about like 9 or 10. He discovered fifth edition, and it was one
Okay.
of those wonderful situations where we were at my daughter's softball game, and he's over with some friends, and they're gathered on the table, and I see they're writing stuff at the paper. I'm like, what the fuck's going on over there? What are they doing? So after the game is over, he comes up to me, he holds up a sheet of paper and says, "Look what I made." I'm like, what is that? He's like, "Oh, it's a character sheet for Dungeons and Dragons. Have you ever heard of that?" And it's just like,
Did you
son,
start crying?
oh no, exactly. It was,
You heard Cats in the Cradle in your head?
exactly. It's like, son, we're gonna have a walk. We're gonna walk and talk. And then started the immediate, from my wife, asking, why are there packages of books showing up on a daily basis? Like, don't worry about it, it's fine.
It's fine.
Anyways, I had been aware of Dungeon Crawl Classics, but it's one of those things where I don't know why it just until you actually look at the book physically and kind of go through it. It's first off, as you said, it's overwhelming.
Yep.
Right off the start, it's a thick, massive book, a lot of information, beautiful artwork
Yep.
throughout. But it's one of those things where it's like I'm kind of looking for stuff to get myself back in and also introduce to my son. He may be a little bit too young for that, but so it's one of those things where I start reading it, put it down, pick it back up, and I'm just reading it more and more. And the more I start reading, it's like your eyes start opening. You see the matrix, like, oh, this is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And so after I picked up the book and ran a couple games, of course, I go to Goodman Games' website, and my friend here owns a game store locally, and I'm just looking for some stuff, and I'm like, hey, you need to buy some Dungeon Crawl Classics for your store. He's like, well, what do you suggest? And I'm like, well, and my mind is going, well, there's nothing. I mean, there's the game, there's all the adventures, and I'm saying, what is there a setting? And then I spied Hubris, and I'm like, oh, okay, so get the core rule book, get Hubris, and get a couple adventures, you'll be fine. And so it arrives, and then I pick up Hubris, and start flipping through it. And as soon as again start reading through, I'm like, oh, this is even better. And then he's like, oh, okay. I'm like, you're gonna need to order another one. I'm taking this one. And so we had a special night, read through the whole book, had my friends over at the store to play it one night. And that's when I got introduced to, and this is the fanboying part of the interview, of my absolute favorite funnel, regardless of setting, is it came from outer space funnel in the back of Hubris. We had so much fun with that. And every time I run it, it is an absolute blast because it mixes the perfect amount of fantasy and that old school, escape from barrier, peaks, sci-fi twist to it. And I patiently wait there until the moment where and spoilers if you haven't played it, but the moment where they get to the operating table.
Oh yeah, that's like everyone's favorite room.
And they never want to leave.
Yeah.
But it's short and concise too, which is the wonderful thing about a funnel. There's many wonderful funnels out there, but as great as they are, a lot of them you do have to tone down a little bit, especially if you're playing at a con.
Yeah.
And I always say that if you want to learn a funnel, without a lot of effort, you're going to want to play this because Starlit Seas is fantastic, but if you're new to DCC, it could be a little bit overwhelming. Yeah. But this one, easy peasy, 3 hours, maybe a little bit more, depending on how long they sit at the operating table.
Mm-hmm.
And just, a wonderful conclusion at the end. It's just, you rock it out and boom, you land and you're off to adventure, in the world of Hubris or anywhere if you're using it for something else. Yeah. So how was the feedback? So Hubris, entered into the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so how was the initial feedback once it came out? Because as you said, there were quite a few people who were trying to do that more to grab that new shock, that Lamentations feel of like, we're just going to make it as nasty and dirty and shocking as possible just for the sake of it. But yours was different. I mean, it definitely shows your particular personality, and reflects your interest in the wonderful things within the game. But again, it may not be for everyone. So
right.
how was the feedback once it came out into the world?
So the feedback was actually really, really positive for the most point. Mm-hmm. So As I mentioned when we were greeting each other and then digitally hugging each other,
Mhm.
becoming two fleshing become one.
Yes.
Um, uh, Basically, I shared almost all, if not all, of the territories on my blog before it came out.
Okay.
I posted the classes, I posted the monsters, I posted the patrons. So a lot of it was already out there
Mhm.
for people to use. And some people had been playing with it for years while I was writing everything or while it was in
Right.
layout. So there was one people who obviously never heard of it because I was a very, very, and still am a very small publisher and writer and everything.
Mhm.
But there was talk about it, and there was excitement on the DCC scene because at that point, I think there were only two other books that had tried to do settings, and
Mhm.
neither one it had particularly landed it at that point. One
Mm.
was kind of like a Conan setting, but it was written for a different book, and again, you
Mhm.
could tell. And then there
Right.
was another one, and I don't remember, but I think it was kind of like a Victorian steampunk style, or I can't
Mm.
remember. But again, that was,
Right.
I believe, that one was another system for another, but I could be wrong. It was like
Mhm.
15 years ago.
Mhm.
I don't even remember who my wife is. But as she comes behind me and kills me.
Right. Or
But so then when the book came out and people started reading it, the thing I was most happy about
mhm.
was the main focus behind hubris was twofold. That I try to live my life as like I could die any day,
Mhm.
and if this is my one shot to write a book, because not many people have the gumption to write a book, see it through to the end, and if this is my one shot, I'm going to put everything I want in this single book.
Mhm.
And then the other thing though was, it's not my book, it's your book.
Yeah.
And I hate setting books where it's like, this is how you play and this is where you go. And I'm like, no, it's fucking stupid. Like, let the people have fun with it. And
Right.
if you don't like something in my book, take it out. Like, I
Mhm.
don't care. Or if you don't like my book, but you need a swamp, there's a swamp. If you need a desert, there's a desert. And part of the reason I designed it with all those biomes in mind was so you could hack it. And that really did come out of that. We were talking about the Google Plus life. It is
Yeah.
that was born out of that. Is it was sharing.
Mhm.
It was just take what you want and fuck the rest.
Right.
Um, so people were really blown away by that. They loved the GM charts and tables in the back because again, I was like, well, if I only have one book and I'm getting shot into space and I can only take one book with me, why am I not going to take the book that has everything I need to ever
Right.
play a game? Oh, do I need
Yeah.
to make a creepy, weird set of ruins? Drop some dice. I have a ruin. Like so. People were really, really impressed. I feel I'm not trying to blow my own horn, but
Oh no.
they just seem like, wow, there's a lot of information in this book, and it's easily digestible and usable
Mhm.
once you get past the sheer size of it.
Yeah.
There is a penis joke in there that I'm going to gracefully only casually mention.
No, go ahead. Hey, this channel is labeled as not for kids.
Well,
So,
you
be
said
as
it,
graceful as you want.
homegrown, right? So
Right. So the reception from Hubris was good. I
yes,
mean, you did receive a lot of good feedback,
yep,
and like with anyone, it's always good to hear that.
yep,
Knowing that people are out there playing and enjoying your game, and of course, unlike I shouldn't say unlike, but I mean there are certain people out there who don't want to hear that they're hacking it, but if you're hearing someone's hacking the crap out of your game, even better,
yeah,
right? They're enjoying it enough to make it their own and
yeah.
making it personal. So that's fantastic. So you've got yourself a wonderful game that people are enjoying. Obviously, at this time, it's also being sold through
Hmm.
Goodman Games too.
Hmm.
Um, and then, so what comes next after that? I mean, it sounds like other than taking a well-deserved break, but I don't know if that's your style. So what happens next after a little bit of time goes by with Hubris for you?
Well, so the other thing I did forget about the reception of
Oh
hubris
yeah.
was not
Hmm.
so much hubris,
Hmm.
but my logo. Um, uh,
Oh.
it was funny to see. I mean, and it wasn't. massive vitriol, anger, waves of haters or anything. But people like, I would get private messages and they'd be like, I'm confused as to why you think I should support an author who's blatantly flipping me off. And I'm like, I'm confused why you think this is about you.
I know.
You know, like why? And like one person, to their credit, and like I do remember this conversation. They kind of the same
Mhm.
thing. Why are you flipping me off? Why are you such an asshole of a human being? And I said, well, this is punk rock, right? Like I
Yeah.
am huge into 80s American hardcore, thrash metal. I'm into skater rock, uh,
Yep.
and I wanted to capture that. So I had kind of come up with the design in my head, but I can't even draw stick figures without them looking like they were workers at Chernobyl. So I asked my wife to draw it, and she did a great job.
Mhm.
And so I explained this all out, and then they did a post on Google Plus saying, I was wrong about this individual, didn't know what punk rock was, never heard of this music. I actually like this music and recommend you buy their book. Yeah, so that was nice. But yeah, I would get comments all the time.
Yeah.
Hubris that year won an Emmy
Yeah.
for Best Digital Product, and I
Mhm.
feel that the only reason that it won Best Digital and not physical is because I was an idiot and didn't know how the Emmys worked and never sent the physical books to the judges. So I only sent the
Yeah.
digital books. So that's on
Yeah.
me.
Mhm.
But so I was there hanging out with peeps, and I was
Mhm.
like, if I win, I'm flipping off everyone. I'm not giving a speech. I'm not, because like people
Yeah.
giving speeches, I get it. You're proud. No one's listening. You're
No.
listing 80 people off that nobody knows. And
Mhm.
and you're like, I'd like to thank my Grant Edna for giving me the slippers. And you're like, okay, cool. So I walk up there, I have my DIY shirt on, which no one told me that a 7 or 8 year old child is going to put the medal around my neck. So I'm up there with a tall can of beer because there's a bar there, and I
Yeah.
have my DIY shirt, and I was like, I'm committed, I'm committed, and I just turned around and I said, I only have one thing to say, and I just flipped off the whole audience. You hear people clapping, you hear some people sucking in enough oxygen to put out a fire, and then I did hear one guy as I walked by. He goes, "Yeah, and punk rock is not dead." So like there,
Nice.
so yeah. So after Hubris,
Mhm.
I hung out with Wayne Snyder at his house for a bit, and during that time, I had really wanted to make like a punk rock book, right?
Mhm.
So while I was waiting for Hubris to be done in layout, I wrote a book called The Star Runner Kit. And
Mhm.
that was for White Star, which then I eventually rewrote the whole book. So instead of having to have the White Star book and the Star Runner Kit, I wrote
Yeah.
it with Black Hack. So you have one book.
Okay.
But so I did that, got pretty good appraise, again, smaller book, but it was that same thing. It's your book. Here's just a bunch of tables and charts to generate a galaxy and starships and have fun.
Mhm.
But I really wanted to make a punk rock book. And so I really got into listening to punk rock constantly. That's all I listened to. Watched trash movies, from the 90s and 80s and comedies and everything. And so the idea I started developing was at that time, two things started happening.
Mhm.
Orange is the New Black came out,
Okay.
and everybody was fucking talking about that show. And then really tough dudes who are bros decided that wearing pink didn't make them assholes. And then it was pink is the new black. And so I was like, no, you're still an asshole because of your actions. Your shirt does not change who you are.
No.
So I start writing this book, and I decided to call it Death is the New Pink, because I was
Yeah.
like, if we are idiots this much in society, eventually it's going to be where killing yourself is fashion, and that's the whole point. You don't care. And I also did it as a kind of I guess, a middle finger to all these
Hmm.
people who were bitching about their characters dying all the time, and oh, woe is me, my level 11th bard. Which why are you rolling a bard? But but I was like, no, like just have fun in the moment. Like not all games need to be serious, you know, epics, sagas.
No.
It's like the whole point of Death is New Pink was really inspired by Tank Girl.
Oh yeah.
And like just I love that comic book.
Hmm.
Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
There's this video game called Trash Planet, and it's a pixel art game. This one dude worked on it by himself for like 15 years or something,
Hmm.
and it was very punk rock, post-apocalyptic, uh, tongue in cheek, and I was really inspired by his screenshots. So I wrote Death is New Pink, really inspired by his screenshots, and I think the game is still only in early access on Steam,
Yeah.
But so I wrote that. A lot of people liked it. It kind of flew under the radar because it used Into the Odd, which
Hmm.
is a phenomenal system. Chris McDowell does great, great work. So I used that. I ran that for a bit. We had a lot of
Hmm.
fun. And then while that was play testing and going on, I went and hung out with Wayne Snyder again,
Hmm.
and he was playing a cartoon at his house, and I had quite a few beers and quite a substantial amount of weed,
Hmm.
and I'm sitting there watching this cartoon called Thundar the Barbarian, and I was like, this seems vaguely familiar to me, and
Yeah.
my brain starts going back into the primordial soup of youth, and I
Hmm.
realized that I had seen this cartoon, but I always thought it was fucking He-Man because they look the same. And I remember as a kid, I have a memory going, why does He-Man look different today? And it's like because I just didn't know. And
Yeah.
so I watched this episode called, I think, Fight of the Amazons. And it's big, tall, blue women who are super strong, who can swim and breathe underwater, with fighting a witch who looks like a shark woman. Why? Don't know, but cool. There's an octopus that shoots ink lasers. There's a mutated spider, a nuclear missile, and Mount Rushmore is underwater. What more do you need?
Right.
I was completely blown away by that one episode. That night, I'm like writing in a notebook, like all these notes. And so by the end of the night, I had purchased the DVD set.
Hmm.
And when I got home from Wayne's place in Virginia, uh, watched it all and started writing Barbarians. So,
Yeah. So, which we'll get into a little bit more detail here, but I do have a question though. So, yeah. So, I mean, it's amazing how those little memories that are gone just get unlocked at a certain point,
yep,
and suddenly you're looking at something through a different perspective and different pair of eyes because you're older now, and then sometimes certain things don't hold up, so
yep,
they're better left behind.
yep.
But other times you're like, oh my god,
Like
I
songs of the
didn't.
South.
Exactly. Yep.
Yep,
But well, but on a positive aspect, realizing that you were when we were younger, we were just looking at the pretty colors and the funny creatures
yep.
moving, but not realizing something like Thundar. How wow! I mean, this is an amazing. The people who created that show in the series put some effort in it, more so than your typical He-Man,
Oh
because
yeah,
He-Man was made to sell toys.
yeah.
Thunder the Barbarian was an artistic endeavor by a group of people
Well,
that wanted to write something like
Well, and
this.
funny story, and I may be messing up on this, but I read
Mhm.
somewhere that Mattel had original. I think it's or was it Hasbro?
Oh God,
I think
He-Man was Mattel, probably. I
Mattel.
think. Yeah.
Mattel had approached Hanna Barbera or whatever for
Mhm.
making the action figures,
Mhm.
and they said no, they weren't interested in it. Well, wouldn't you know it that He-Man, which looks exactly the same as Thundar the Barbarian, comes out like 6 months later?
Of course,
You
of
know,
course. That's how these things work
right?
in the corporate side. So you have this inspiration, and it's just this you're furiously writing and creating the setting. Um, why go with the Black Hack rule set? is my question.
Um,
You have written for other sets, like you
yep,
said. You've done DCC, you've done a previous Black Hack, you've done Into the Odd.
yep.
But what was it about this one that you said this world is going to be run by this rule system?
One, again, I love DCC, but
Hmm.
uh, as I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of more of a casual gamer. I
Yep.
don't have a lot of time, so my
Hmm.
average game time, when I do get to run a game once a month, if I'm lucky, is usually 3 hours. Is
Yeah.
usually what I get. Maybe 4, never more than that. So can't. I don't want a lot of that time being flipping through a rule book,
Right.
even though the options are fun, like DCC. It's a
Hmm.
lot of, oh, you got a critical, oh, we got a roll, and then what die do I use? And I was like, no, I want to streamline the process to
Hmm.
maximize the fun at the table. I don't care what's in the book. I care about the table.
Right.
And so I really started experimenting with different ways of running games. And my poor players, like every week, I'd be like, well, we're going to play your same characters, but completely different mechanics because I just wanted to test things to see. And at one point, we were playing Death is the New Pink.
Hmm.
And um, what I did was it was just a constant opposed roll. Whatever you were doing was a constant opposed roll.
Okay.
And that way there was no creation, there was no stats to memorize. You're rolling a D. Okay, that's a wall you're going to scale.
Hmm.
I'm going to roll a D6 because it's a short wall. You roll your D20.
Yep.
All right, the D20 rolled a 2, you rolled a 4, you climbed over the wall, and then if you were better at it because you wrote on your character sheet that you're tall or a climber, you
Hmm.
got advantage. That was it. There was no stats, there was nothing. And we had fun with it, but it was very swingy.
Yeah.
So I was looking at Black Hack because Black Hack is gritty without being brutal. And I really wanted to capture um, that heroic feeling. Like Death
Hmm.
is New Pink, hubris do not get attached to your character. Like they will die,
Yeah.
very horribly usually.
Oh yeah.
But barbarians, I set it up so death does not come frequently, and that's stated outright. You're the
Yeah.
heroes. Like this is that kind of game. You
Hmm.
are Thundar. Um, and if the GM is not playing it that way, that's their call. But maybe they should play Morkborg.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Right.
Um, but so I decided for Black Hack because it was so simple. Roll under. Do you have a 15 strength? You roll a 14 or under. I don't have to tell you anything. Are you
Yeah.
good at it? Roll with advantage. So simple.
Hmm.
And I'm really attracted to simplicity now when it comes to my games, which is why I eventually want to do a rewrite for Hubris with uh Morkborg.
Oh, interesting.
I've started that. It's not a transfer. I'm
Hmm.
completely rewriting Hubris after the gods all went to an orgy and ate
Hmm.
themselves. And now the world is collapsing because it's called God Eat God. And so then the whole world is in madness, like Mortborg, but it's
Yeah.
hubris. But now it's a different rule set.
Oh.
And and that way it's like if you don't know anything about hubris, doesn't matter, because it's not
Yeah.
important. So yeah, so I love simplicity. And again, because I deal with casual gamers.
Hmm.
With the stuff I do as a nonprofit, I sometimes get a chance to role play for young kids, and I got 5 minutes to capture their attention before they're back
Yeah.
on the phone. And
Right.
so I'm just like, write down 5 words of things that you're good at: sports, stabbing, math, and science. Okay, cool. You have advantage on those. Let's go. All right. And that's how I
Yeah.
do it. So that was why barbarians, that was kind of that start of it when I really, that and Into the Odd, when I was really like looking for a more minimalist style, but
Right.
with enough wiggle room to make it voluptuous.
Yeah, the Barbarians Kickstarter was one that when it was announced, hopped on right away,
Well, thank you.
as did quite a few people.
Yep.
I mean, there's no denying it. There was an immense amount of nostalgia factor involved with it, And but what's odd though, which I found with this one, because a lot of times you will see certain games that are catered towards people of a certain age
Mhm.
and their youth and their nostalgia therein. And sometimes it feels more like a gimmick, and other times it feels like it's sincere. And I don't know anyone who kind of questioned this. It wasn't like, oh, Thundar. It was like, holy shit, man. Let's get this game to the table as quick as we can because I want to see what this is all about. And and just borrowed heavily from the aesthetic.
Mhm.
But that also, was a successful Kickstarter,
Yep.
and likewise it did arrive with quite a bit of fanfare, enough so where you've got a relatively good amount of barbarian fan base who
Yep.
is, after it came out and probably before, were continuing to create and add on to this. Likewise yourself, you've come out with two or three additional books.
Only one so
uh,
far.
Only
I
one.
have a level 0 funnel called
Hmm.
The Slave Mines of Vindicus the Terrible.
Yes. Yep.
But I in layout right now are three different adventures.
Okay.
Hildebrand, who has my does my layout,
Hmm.
is picking away at those when he's not underneath the mountain of DCC stuff that Joseph pays him
Yeah.
for. Oh,
So it was, and I'm going to say it's one of the things that, of course, drew me to it was the nostalgia factor. Got it, and immediately the thing that I enjoyed about it is one, the layout. It's an easy read, and it's not DCC thick. And as someone who's dyslexic, who for a book like DCC, I've got to read it 6 or 7 times before it'll all stick.
mm,
And of course, depending on the size of the font and the fact that I'm getting older and all the other bullshit factors that get involved, it's nice to have, something that's a little bit larger font wise,
yep.
but easy to read. And it not to the point where it seems like it's cutting corners. And so, and I'll let you know that I ran a game for an online convention
Oh,
for a bunch of my British friends who have no idea what Thundar is.
that's
They're
why they
familiar with
lost
some.
the war.
Yeah. I mean, their GI Joe is Hero Man or something like that. So it's all they have their own nostalgia. But so but one of the things I loved about it is one of the things when I opened up your book, it's like, oh, this is, it is a, fantasized world, but it's a fantasized world of our Earth. Oh, and a lot of this takes place in my hometown of Orange County. You've got certain references to it. I'm going to make a dystopian Anaheim,
Cool.
which the game that I ran for them was a dystopian Disneyland,
Oh,
and
cool.
had an
Which
absolute
anyone
blast
can
for them.
get. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter where
yeah.
you're from.
So, but the rules were brilliant. Cinematic, fast paced, easy to teach on the fly, easy to learn. So yeah, so it was a perfect fit for this particular setting, which you kind of want a cinematic game. You want it to move fast. You
Exactly.
look at it as a cartoon episode. You've got 20 minutes to tell your story before we move on to Snorks.
Yep.
So let's get through this. So very happy for the success of that, and I'm
Thank you.
glad that there's more coming soon. So that's great, and also very happy you've got this wonderful fan base. That is supporting it and
They've
so
been very
contributing.
excited and
Mhm.
supportive, and it's been really humbling,
Mhm.
especially when they
So,
send me nudes. Please, no
uh,
one, don't send me nudes.
no, 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 no. Send them to me first.
Yeah.
I'll encrypt them and then send them to Mike.
When someone
Uh,
sends you color swatches from Home Depot, that's when you know you've won.
oh, excellent, excellent. So, all right, so Barbarians was another wonderful success.
Yep.
Again, a well deserved break, and we're friends on Facebook, so I do see the boring side of social media, everyone's everyday life of me taking pictures of my kids and you talking about your work,
Yep.
and it's obvious that you are very well established within this nonprofit that you work for, and it seems like it's a nonprofit you're very proud of because
Mhm.
you're constantly detailing the work that you're
Well, I
doing
run
for
it, so
them.
I hope I
Yeah,
am.
yeah, but you so there you go. So you unlike other people who this is not your full-time job, this is a This is a thing that you do because you enjoy it. It's a passion, but you're very busy with your personal life.
Mhm.
But you still are creating more stuff.
Trying to.
So trying to. So you've then after Barbarians came out, as you said, you're looking to redo Hubris,
Yep.
utilizing the Black Hack. It's a a brand new
No,
world.
Morkborg.
I'm sorry. Oh, Morkborg. Yes, Morkborg. Again, that's going to be purchased by me. My son, who's 16, going on 17 now, Morkborg fanatic. So I
Great.
know that
Yeah.
he's going to want to take that. Um, what else is coming from DIY? And also, I'd like to before we do that, I'd like to go back to DIY because
Sure.
your DIY site is not just role playing games. You do have other things that you have on that site, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
Yep.
Let me pull that up real quick, just so. All right. So tell me a little bit about. So one of the first things you see after the homepage is a GOG Studio. This is your wife's jewelry store
Yep, which she
that
has
she
not
runs.
been very good on keeping up on, but she's a talented beater. That's a
Hmm.
hobby for her. My wife is
Yeah.
a scientist.
Okay.
She has her PhD in toxicology, and she works in immunology. She does radiation research with like how injury affects your body
Oh,
after
amazing.
getting radiation treatment. So she's super
Mhm.
smart. I don't know why she settled for me, but whatever. I guess that's every man's plight, isn't it? Like, why did
Uh,
she fuck me? Like, I don't know.
mhm.
But so she did a GOG studio.
Mhm.
She still beads occasionally, but she is. I don't like the social media stuff. She hates the social media stuff. So
Mhm.
she did it, started it, and was like, I don't want to promote myself.
Okay. Oh, so and of course you have other things focused on here: barbarians of
Mhm.
the ruined earth, tools and stuff, helpful stuff for
And it's a
those
third,
out
and I
there.
gave a third party license, very similar to what
Oh,
Mortberg did,
yes.
because Black Hack is an open game license.
Hmm.
I know I'm getting older. Again, I run a nonprofit, which is pretty much like I never thought I'd have a job where like I got home and I still want to work because like I like what I do.
Yeah.
So I do that. I go to a lot of meetings, so I know I can't be the one who has to constantly create the content.
Yeah.
And really wanted to advocate for people that like, hey, if this makes you smile, the world is a dumpster fire. Make stuff that makes you smile. And
Yeah.
so if Barbarians makes you smile and it's what motivates someone to write or make their first adventure ever, I ain't gonna stop you. I just gave some guidelines. Don't use my characters. Try
Yeah.
to make it in color because that's kind of the point. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, and then don't be a dick. That was in there
Yeah.
too. That's in the license.
Yeah. I mean, that's right there, big red letters right
Yep.
in the middle, so you don't miss it. Yeah.
Yep.
So, um, so yeah, so this DIY aesthetic that you have, it's not just you, it's your wife also, and both of you are creators. We'll just, for lack of a better term, just going
Yeah.
to use that. So you're looking at hubris. You're establishing a foundation for other people to utilize barbarians in the Middle Earth to go out and create their own stuff, have fun with it. What else is coming from DIY then?
Um.
Uh,
Yeah. So I have an adventure that I ran at Gen Con the last time I went, which was the year before the pandemic.
mhm.
And then I've ran it here, and then there's been a space of time since I've really released anything.
Okay.
Things were already kind of written, so not a sob story, but just so if people wonder why. In 2018, my dog got injured, and
Hmm.
we thought we were gonna have to put her down. She lived for 4.5 more years.
No.
She got her. They thought that she had paralyzed herself, but she'd slipped a disc. She got her mobility back. But I had that dog for 15 or 18 and a half years.
Oh wow.
And she was as closest to a kid as I ever wanted to get, and I'll ever
Mhm.
get because I ain't got no kids. And so it was really tough. I was the primary caregiver for this dog that, as she got older, needed more and more care.
Right.
And then eventually we had to put her down. So during that process, as primary caregiver and looking at, kind of you're looking at a ticking time bomb of the thing you identify as a child or what you love is
Mhm.
going to die. It kind of
Yeah.
sucked all the creative juices that I had gone. And so we put her down just over a year ago.
Hmm.
And about, I'd say about 5 months ago was when I kind of finally started to feel like writing again
Yeah.
at all. And I had been like again, I'd been doing dollops here and there, like I said. So I had this hubris adventure I was writing in 2019. It was a year after Perfect, the year that Perfect got injured, and then I just kind of burnt out. But that one, I have about 5 to 10 pages left to finish. It's very heavily inspired by Evil Dead 1, 2, and Army of Darkness.
Nice.
Um, that one I'm pretty proud of. I need to get it out because it's a sandbox murder horror thing
Hmm.
with DCC and hubris. It's a level 0 funnel, and it's a sandbox, and I created, I think, a pretty unique way of handling escalation. Of you can go anywhere, like a lot of murder mysteries that are sandboxes. If you go to the far house in the back where the boss is, it's over, but
It's
nothing
over.
scary happens. In this, it's no matter where you go, the escalation, I basically created a meter, and for every weird scary thing you see, the meter goes up. So if you go to that
Yeah.
next house, if your meter's at a 12 instead of a 5, so if you go in it's a 5, this is what happens. If it's a 12, like in Evil Dead, the longer the movie goes, the weirder the shit gets, right, and the
Hmm.
more horrific. And so that's kind of what I did with that adventure. So I got to finish that, and then that'll go to proofing. I just reached not like this was hard work or anything. I just reached an agreement with Jessica Lockwood, who's done a lot of the illos for Barbarians, and her and I
Hmm.
are going to start doing a As We Can When We Can Barbarians comic. And so that we're pretty excited about. I've never done a comic book, and she
Hmm.
has a couple times. So we're looking forward to collaborating on that. I absolutely adore her art, and she's just the
Hmm.
sweetest person ever. So working on that. I have 3 barbarian adventures in layout right now.
Hmm.
2 of them are mini adventures. You can see. I think they're both on my blog. One is the Lab of Dr. Chaostrum, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to change the name because Chaosium's probably going to try to sue my ass.
They don't like that stuff.
Yeah,
They don't.
and
Ask
then
Dave Beatty.
yeah, and, oh, that's too close to our name. No, it's not, dickhead. And then the other one is Raid on the Blistered Bunch, and I think the covers are already on my webpage and everything.
Hmm.
Um, and that adventure, they're small, and even when I ran them, Raid on the Blistered Bunch, one group it took 1 session, another group it took 2 sessions, another group it took 3 sessions. It just depends on what they want to do, but the way I did it is bulleted pointed, and it's there's flavor, there's fluff, but by and large, I'm relying on the GM to come up with their flavor and fluff because that's your responsibility.
Yeah.
And I feel like so many games that when it's a paragraph this long of a guy's coat and how he waves, I don't care. I just don't care.
And neither do your players.
Neither do your
Yeah.
players.
Yeah.
And so my idea with this book is the first Raid on the Blistered Bunch is going to be the front, and
Hmm.
instead of having a back cover, the second adventure is going to be upside down
Oh
on the back.
yes.
And so then you just turn it over and there's your other adventure.
Hmm.
So that will be the first book that will come out. And then the other one is I think everybody has wanted to run a festival or a celebration in a game of D&D, and I've done several, and I've played in several, and every one of them is you trying to create games of chance or fun ideas and things and hope that it works. And well, they didn't go to this section of the town, and that was where your Arm and Hammer guy that was going to tell them about the haunted house, and so
Right.
what I did is I took the Chrono Trigger, if you've ever played that, the
Yep.
Millennium Fair, right? That beginning, which
Hmm.
is like such an amazing intro to a game,
Yeah.
which gives you this like weird feeling of agency and freedom, you
Hmm.
know. And then the quick segue, spoilers, is when you get to the trial and you realize the things that you did at that intro affect how your guilty or not guilty verdict is really cool.
Hmm.
So I paid homage to that, and this whole adventure is nothing but a celebration, and it's just games of chance and a haunted house to go through. There's a little sewer that you can go rescue a little kid, stuff of that nature, but keeping it simple.
Excellent. Fascinating.
So
I mean,
I think
that's
that's it right now.
yeah.
Oh, and then
Uh,
I'm rewriting Star Runner Kit for Mordborg. It's
okay.
going to be a Star Wars version.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm writing a new setting that is I did the classes and I posted some of them on my blog, and it's for
Okay.
Mordborg.
Okay.
And this one I'm really excited about because Mordborg, everyone makes Mordborg and is like, I'm going to try to out Mordborg,
Yes.
and be more Morgborg than Morgborg. So
Yeah.
I was like, well, again, my middle finger, I'm not going to fucking do that. I
Yeah.
love the aesthetic of Morgborg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that aesthetic, and I'm taking things like Shag Art, Wizard of the Oz, Adventure Time, uh, Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, Breath of the
Mm-hmm.
Wild. These are all these influences,
Yeah.
and I'm making a bright and colorful uh, setting that's going to use that aesthetic that Morkborg creates, but it's not going to be grimdark. Because I want to prove and show that Morkborg can be other things than just Morkborg. Um, and it's jazz music, the Delta blues, the Crossroads are all going to be
Nice.
mentioned and take a piece in this. So
Mm-hmm.
I just finished the classes, and the beings. I'm not calling them races or
Yeah.
species; they're called
Mm-hmm.
beings because this is the
Okay.
land of imagination. I don't fucking care. So,
Right.
oh
Oh, fascinating. So yeah, you're not sitting on your laurels at
no,
all. It just it's just time permitting, and which is true for 99.9% of anyone who does what you do too.
yep,
So, um, one thing I just want to point out that I kind of jumped over though was another thing that you came out with for Dungeon Crawl Classics Hubris is the adventure Orcs.
yes,
Yes, and that's another wonderful game. It's a done in an homage to a train heist. And the one thing that I found fascinating about it was the generation of the train cards using playing cards, which was great. And now, was that something that had been sitting around for a while, and then you got around to producing, or is because I mean it's there's a difference between just here's an adventure and then here's an entire setting.
yep.
Um, but so did
Uh,
that just come about? Because I remember it came out after Barbarians, right?
yep.
And was that Kickstarter? Or did that just pop on
I
DCC's
kickstarted
website?
it. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Yeah, no, that one I had kind of started to write. That one came out of, I've been to Gen Con 3 times
Yeah.
only, uh, but the first, by the way, like this is how I've been told I'm insane is the first day of the con, my first year,
Hmm.
I ran, it came from outer space, and I ran it
Okay.
for 10 people
Okay.
with
Yeah.
4 characters. And so everyone's like, "What are you doing, rookie?" And I'm like, "I'm Mike Evans. Fuck you." And then I did it, and it was a blast. Like,
Yeah.
and by the way, by the time that all 10 characters got to the end, they all had only like one character left, right?
Oh, I know.
So it was like whatever. But running those con games, I really did see, to me, some of the, like you were saying, with some of these games, that they're great when you're running with friends, but in a con setting, you're having to cut out so much as the GM
Right.
and really understand that flow. And I said, well, what if you just did it as a train heist?
Hmm.
Like, by and large, no offense, these games are linear, whether you want to recognize it or not.
Yeah.
There's a beginning, there's a middle,
Of
and
course there.
there's an end.
Hmm.
Regardless of where that ending is and how you get there, there is, So to me, there's a recording error.
Oh, on you or me?
It just says on this side, recording tab, open recording tab,
Okay.
learn more. And it says network connection lost. Please reconnect and try again.
Oh, it's okay. So if you need to reconnect, so
Oh, there it
what it
is. Now it's fine.
yeah, yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
So the good news is even though it's recording on your end, it's still doing a general recording of both of us at the same time.
Okay.
So
I just
that's good
didn't,
either way.
like with some of those things, you're like, oh shit, like,
Oh yeah, that's why I'm testing this thing out, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I liked it, because it kind of gives a little bit of redundancy in it. Whereas
okay.
if it was Zoom, we'd be fucked.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all right, so
So
orcs and the what you recognize at Gen Con.
yeah. So So basically, I was like, my philosophy behind it was kind of, whether people realize it or get that I'm calling it out or not, is that
Hmm.
you're being railroaded. I'm literally railroading
Yeah.
you. Uh, uh, and when I was starting the play testing, I was, or the writing process, I finished the cars. I'm like, yes, 52 cars, I'm done. And then I was like, what if they try to go above the train? Okay, I'm going to write a table for that. And so I wrote like a D100 table of
Hmm.
encounters that happen if you go above the train. And
Hmm.
so one of the first times I play tested, they went through 2 cars. They lost a bunch of their characters. They're like, I'm done. We're going above the train. And like, I think the first thing I rolled was like octopus, flying octopus monster hits character in the head, save or head knocked off.
Yeah.
And boom, that happened. And they were like, oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. Yep. Nope. We're going back down, and, that kind of stuff. Um,
Right.
and then to make it not feel static, so that there's shit going on, I created an events table. So some of the
Hmm.
rooms you'll walk into and it says roll an event. Okay, here's the event. And it's just to add that fluff in the moment so it feels like there's actually action happening. And then as a game master, it's your decision. Is this a flash in the pan that's just passing the characters by? Or is it
Hmm.
something they can interact with? That's your choice. And then I felt that the way the map works is perfect because you don't need to study. You just lay the cards out and then you get to do the math of like, oh, okay, I'm running out of time. They're doing an average of one room every 30 minutes. I got to knock
Right.
out 6 rooms.
Hmm.
And now you, like me, I know how to do it because I wrote it and then I play tested it enough, but I know the rooms to knock out and the rooms not to.
Right.
I know the rooms that are the big hits, like the ballroom is always a big hit with people. So that one, if I have it in the stack, that one's not leaving. But maybe one of the
Hmm.
slave pins is leaving. Maybe one of the
Right.
combat encounters is leaving. But so yeah, I got that idea from Zarkov, who did Neo Greek classical reunion revolution. He'll kill me because I can't remember the name of it. Or
Oh, I'm not helping you with that.
yeah, me either. And he'll be fine with it. He'll be fine with it. But he wrote an adventure for me called Ghoul
Yeah.
Prince
Hmm.
for DCC. But he did that with an adventure for Lamentations of the Flame Princess. I cannot remember that one, but he also did it for one of my favorite adventures ever written, which was Scenic Dunsmith,
Yes.
where there was these cards, and you would put how many cards you wanted out, and then that's who's in this village. And I just
Hmm.
thought that was so fucking brilliant that I was like, I'm going to do that, but I'm literally going to railroad the players to the end, just to be a dick.
Right.
So yeah, that's where it came from.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, you're obviously you're preaching to the choir here in regards to some of those things, but it's still, the idea of a sandbox, the idea of, 100% agency with an adventure, the idea of railroading and what it is and what it shouldn't be. All these things are well and good on paper, but at the end of the day, you're still you have a goal and you're trying to attain it. So you are being railroaded one way or another,
Yep.
whether you realize it or not. And it's not the end of the world.
Right.
Did you have fun? Yeah, I had fun. Well, then shut up.
Yep. Exactly.
So, well, so so yeah, so we got orcs down because I wanted to highlight that because it's another one, and it's a beautiful book. I
Thank
mean, the
you.
covers is fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, Mike Faley, man,
Mhm.
he can draw. He can draw, and
Yeah.
he did a T-shirt for me, which sadly didn't sell well, but uh, but it was an homage to Hellraiser, where it's this
Hmm.
guy in knights outfits, and I gave him pictures of the Deadites from Evil Dead, and I gave
Yeah.
him pictures of the what I can't remember what they're called, the Cenobites
Yes.
from Hellraiser, and I said I want you to mix these two and have them dragging someone with meat hooks into a portal in hell. And he gave it to me, and it works. And everyone gets it. Like they're like, those look like Deadites, but from Hellraiser. And I'm like, that's exactly what I
Yeah.
wanted. So
You gonna buy the shirt? Oh no.
no, Well, you know,
Yeah.
the biggest one was which is why I'm never doing trend again. I'm never
Yeah.
like it just doesn't work. But like I did a hey, I have a barbarian shirt. It's
Hmm.
purple eh, and it's colorful. And here's the picture. How many of you like this? Would you buy? Oh yeah, I'll buy it. Here, like woo, where take my money. So I bought the fucking things, and then everyone's like, I don't like purple, man.
What?
And I'm like,
What?
who doesn't like purple?
Yeah. Does it come in white? No.
No, because
No.
when I spill on myself, that's it.
And you said you were gonna buy it. Yeah,
Yep.
I remember that shirt, that when
Yep.
that shirt was announced,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, and again, I'll be honest, I didn't buy it, but I wasn't like because it was purple.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of those things where yeah, I will occasionally buy a t-shirt every once in a while, but
Yep.
I get my secondary aspect on with, other things. I mean,
Yep.
I'm a collector.
Yep.
I'd rather spend my money on a book. So, but my son, he will definitely, pick up a t-shirt of anything that he loves. So he's the one that I will buy it for. In fact, I thought I did. Anyways, I'll check that to see if you mailed it or not. But so um, so we've come to what you're working on,
Mhm.
and we've got a lot of wonderful things coming soon, which has gotten me excited. And I hope the people who are listening, both your fans and people who are just, discovered you here, hopefully they've done that, that they're excited too. Um, so I've got a question then, just
Sure.
aside. So since you don't play a lot,
Mhm.
right? And I know, and there's a lot of people that don't. There's a lot of even full-time game designers who never play. They're busy working or doing other stuff. I would imagine though, that you're still avidly reading games that are coming out, because you've referenced Mark Borg, you've
Mhm.
read it. I would imagine you've played it. Um, is there currently anything coming out that you've seen or that you've read about that you're excited about outside of what you're currently working on that you might be looking forward to?
Yeah. I just backed. Let me look this one up on
Okay.
Kickstarter.
Hmm.
And to be honest, I've slowed down
Yeah.
on purchases just because I can't keep up with everything.
No.
But
Yeah.
I did just back Vast Grim into the Oblivion,
Okay.
uh, and I think I did not get that yet.
Hmm.
Um, Runation Pilgrimage,
Hmm.
which is by the amazing Don Stroud.
Hmm.
And he's someone I will back to infinity, and not just because he lets me be the big spoon when we snuggle, but also because the thing I like about RPGs now is, and I'm not trying to be egotistical, and I'm sorry if it
No.
comes off this way, is
Hmm.
when I write something, it's because I want to write it and I believe in it.
Yeah.
When I talked about burnout, part of the thing that led to that time, not just with the dog, is I lost sight of that for a bit.
Mm.
And that was, I got to be relevant. I got to be in this
Oh.
moment. I got to be remembered because it took me this long to get to this point. And so that's when I really started thinking about writing adventures for hubris all the time. And I
Hmm.
don't run adventures. I never have. I never,
Yeah.
like, I've run like 5 adventures in my whole life.
Hmm.
I write everything from scratch, or I make it up on the fly.
Right.
So if I don't do that, how can I write something and then try to sell it to somebody when I don't necessarily believe in the product myself? And that's bullshit.
Yes.
And so then it became, how do I make an adventure that I'd be willing to run? And that's
Okay.
where like Slave Minds came out. Like Slave Minds
Hmm.
is color coded. You walk into a room and a GM can just read it line by line. It's color coded, and they can run it on the fly. With the barbarians ones, they're rules light, they're stripped down. There's not the fluff. It's not inconvenient for you if you're a busy person to read.
Hmm.
And so, like with Don Stroud and these people that I back now, the books
Yeah.
have a voice. They have like, I'm making this because the art's going to be unique, the layout's going to be unique. There's something about it that's not just the 17th retelling of Lord of the Rings, but now instead
Right.
of orcs, they're angry fairies. I don't know,
Right.
you know. But so I'm backing that, and then the one that I back just because I'm really excited about the art, and I'm gonna butcher the name, but it's Obojima Tales from the Tall Grass.
Hmm.
And that one is Studio Ghibli meets Legend of Zelda, supposedly. I
Okay.
still think it's going to be absolutely too fucking chonky for me to even be interested in running it.
Yeah.
But the art, the expression of joy, and I also just like when writers really are like, well, how would you make Studio Ghibli in a fifth edition? Okay, that's cool. I want to see your ideas.
Yes.
Um, so those are the exciting ones I backed. And then I didn't realize I'm blanking on his name, but he did the Neverland book, the Peter Pan. I don't know if you're familiar with
Oh
that one.
yes, yes, I am. And I'm going to blank on the name too. But yeah,
Yeah,
Neverland, and they
I
got a series.
yep,
Or
I
yeah,
thought that was a
Mhm.
phenomenal book.
Yes, it
The
is.
layout was amazing. The art was spot on. And then I didn't realize that he had done an Oz book. And so I bought that one and I read through it, and I think it's really good. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm just going to say it's really good, but I think
Yep.
it's a missed opportunity
Okay.
in a lot of ways because there's not a lot of art in it.
Yeah.
They're only the enemies, and they while I love the maps in the subway thing, which is
Hmm.
cool, um,
Yep.
I have that in real life. Why is the biggest thing that you're pointing about the magical land of Oz the subway system?
Hmm.
And like and there's great things on the charts, but like to me that was a lot. Like they mention all the lands, there's no art for the lands. I have nothing as a player or a GM to get me excited about that except wait for railway lines.
Oh, and they are completing the trilogy. Eventually, their Wonderland's going to be coming out soon too.
Oh
So
good. So
so
they're gonna have an escalator system.
yeah. With a caterpillar hostess at the top to
Yep.
welcome you to the grocery store. Yeah, no, it's the first one was fantastic. I do agree with you. The second one just seemed to be again good, but not as good as the first one.
Yep.
But hopefully Wonderland might be a bit of a different turn of events. So, but yeah, all fantastic. The and yes, I do agree with you. There's things come in waves, and the JRPG tabletop RPG is a trend right now,
The what?
and it's all these the JRPG,
Oh yes.
the
Okay,
Japanese role
JRPG.
playing
Okay.
game
Yep.
tabletop RPG is a trend right now. You seems like every other day there's another one that's emulating this. I mean, Final Fantasy just announced they're coming out with a tabletop role playing game
God
today.
help us.
uh, and but every one of them is thicker than Weird Frontiers. I mean, just ridiculous amount of stuff, and I'm like, I I I don't have time, and that's the reason why I don't have time to play through Chrono Trigger again.
Yeah.
I'm sure as hell not going to be reading an 800-page book about it.
Right.
But again, wonderful, beautiful, and I'm sure they all capture the aesthetic, and they do. But it's just, my God, I don't. If I'm going to spend 800 hours, I'm going to do it with a
Yeah.
controller.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And RPGs, I feel, like I'm not saying they're going the wrong way because for whatever,
mhm.
but like you don't need that much information, and
Yeah.
your players don't. Like when I was playtesting this Mortboard version of Star Runner kit, it's very
Hmm.
much in mind with a big fuck you towards Disney. Uh, I am blatantly ripping off Star Wars, but I'm filing
Yeah.
the numbers down
Yeah.
because, like, I'm like literally Squid Man. Okay, who do you think that is? It's Corn, and like
Right.
Mon Calamari, I call him Snail Boy or something, whatever.
Right.
But these. My cat is making noise.
Yeah.
With that in mind, it's just like you don't need that much information. And when I've been trying to play test this with people who are like, I know Star Wars, I would even mention Star Wars races and characters to them,
Hmm.
and they wouldn't remember. And like because they're
Yeah.
casual, right? Like
Okay. Oh, right. Got it.
and then you have to be like, it's a trap, and they're like, oh, okay, I get it. Then whatever. But like if something that is so ingrained in pop culture as
Mhm.
fucking Star Wars, and I'm
Mhm.
still having to build a big bridge to gap the player's mind and agency. What are you
Yeah.
doing with an 800-page book where you're like Shiva, the god of ice and snow, who has Madonna 1990 booby bra with but of icicles, and like no one's gonna get it. And then
Yeah.
your player buy-in is diminished, and then the GM gets frustrated because they're like, no one loves this game as much as me. Well, no, they don't.
Uh,
you
yeah.
know,
But I just spent 14 weeks reading this. Oh, well, okay. Sorry.
yeah,
You do realize they only had a 10-page quick start.
yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Fuck.
Well, but that was just to create your name.
Right, right. Oh, yeah. It's only 4 characters though.
Yeah,
You can't go beyond that. Oh, yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. And yes, and again, seeing, your social media feed, I know it's been for as with some of us, the new Star Wars has been a roller coaster ride for a lot of people. So I
yep,
don't, the and Disney deserves a lot of the big, fuck yous
yep.
that people have been giving them. So, well, Mike, I don't want to keep you much longer. We've been chatting for an hour and a half.
I
This is
apologize
this.
for your trauma.
No, I don't want to. I mean, if you've seen the other ones, I sat through a 4-hour interview with Polly Kidd, so I don't have a problem sitting through it.
Oh, Polly's awesome.
Yes, 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 she is, and need to get her back on because we sat and chatted for 2 hours afterwards, and the whole thing was because I did it early in the morning because she's in Australia, and it's just like, well, we're not wasting this time. I got up at 5 a.m. for this shit, so we're
Yep.
gonna continue talking. But again, um, this is wonderful. I
Thank
mean,
you.
this is you do your perspective is widely different than quite a few other creators out there that I know, but it is refreshing to me.
That's why I don't have
It
friends.
I'll be your
Oh,
friend.
thank you. I
Uh,
appreciate it. But yeah, no, I really
uh,
appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
yes.
I love talking games with people, and I don't
Yeah.
get to do it very often, so I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Oh, you are very
I'll
welcome.
send you
Uh,
nudes.
oh, hey, you know what? Fantastic. And I promise I won't share them on 4chan. Coming soon.
Yeah,
So
it's nothing they haven't seen before. Trust me.
but thank you so much. I really appreciate the time you've come on here. I wish you much success, and of course, I will definitely be there to support it myself personally. I'm thoroughly interested in what you're doing with hubris and utilizing the Morkborg rules because I'm a giant Morkborg fan myself. My son and his entire gaming group, big Morkborg nerds, so I know they're going to latch onto that, and as should everyone else watching this who are Morkborg fans that may not be aware of Mike himself. But I guarantee you, if it's anything like hubris for DCC, you will not be disappointed when this comes out.
And
Uh,
as I said,
mhm.
they you can already start reading some of it on my webpage.
Which will be there'll be a link in the description on here,
Cool.
along with a lot of other things associated, with Mike and DIY. So definitely go to the description to find all this information. And but to be fair, as far as I know, there's really other than your blog site and the DIY site and everything. You're not on any other social media other than
No,
just your personal
I hate
Facebook. So,
Twitter or X
yep,
or Swastika, whatever it's
yep,
called now. Um, I hate that website. I always have.
yeah,
And then Elon Musk got it and made it even worse. So I deleted my account the moment he signed the deal.
hmm
I don't like forums,
yeah,
and Discord is noise.
yeah.
So I miss G Plus. My email is DIYRPGproductions.com. You can
hmm
always email me there. I respond. You can message me on Facebook,
hmm
or like me. I go those routes, but limited time, limited availability on that.
Understandable, understandable. Um, so again, fantastic, enlightening. It's definitely it's something for if you're a young creator out there and you're looking for a great story on how to do what you want to do and not be that concerned about what other people think. And then fuck yeah, just, listen to Mike's story, do what you want to do, be creative, don't be concerned about what everyone else is doing, do it your way, do it yourself, and you'll be a lot happier,
And if you have
regardless
a
of the outcome.
problem with it,
Yep.
please see my logo.
Absolutely. Oh, so this has been yet another completely unprofessional interview with the uncompromising Mike Evans. Mike, please come back on again. As things start to come out, I'd love to have you back on for a chat, or also on to Titter Pigs, with Keith, and have you on there to talk about it and promote it, because
Love it.
this is fantastic. I love talking with people such as you.
Well,
So
thank you. I really appreciate it. And then next
yep,
time I run a game, and I'll message you after
yep,
this. But
hmm
join us if you're free.
yeah. Oh, yep. You've heard it here. He promised me a game.
I did.
So if you see me complaining later, I'm going to reference this video. It's like,
Absolutely.
who are you? So everyone, thank you all for watching. And if you like this video, go ahead and subscribe it. I don't care. I do this for fun. I don't do this for the subs. This is my 50-year-old midlife crisis. So,
well played.
that's why I'm here. But definitely check out the podcast I do with Keith from Rolling Box Cars called Titter Pigs. Again, a link in the bottom. And coming next is going to be Scott Malthouse from the Trollish Dever. Looking forward to that conversation. That will be dropping this weekend. And
he's awesome.
He is awesome. He's a great guy. I'm looking forward to that.
And he did one of my favorite rules ever.
What was that?
All shields must be splintered.
And he's also an American football fan, so I think he's a Denver Broncos fan. So we'll see how his team is doing, but which is rare for someone from the UK. But again, I'm always bad at saying goodbyes. But goodbye, everyone.
Be well.
Take care.